Hello everyone! أهلا وسهلا بطلاب الصف الخامس الابتدائي with the Science lessons تحت رعاية وإشراف وزارة التربية والتعليم. Today we're going to take a new lesson with Unit 3. The last time we talked about the Unit 3 lesson 1 of it, which is the types of food relationship. وعرفنا يعني إيه هي الفود relationships وإيه هي أنواعها. That are 3 types: predation, symbiosis, and subordinatism. And we talked about each one of them in details. But today we're going to take a new lesson, which is lesson number 2, which is the last lesson in our science curriculum. So let's start our lesson and see what is it. Let's start. Our lesson for today is about lesson 2 in Unit 3. Lesson 2 in Unit 3, which is the environmental balance. يعني إيه environmental balance? That's the concept that we want to understand in that lesson. بس قبل ما نفهم يعني إيه environmental balance، في concept مهم جدا we want to know, which is the ecosystem. What is the ecosystem? يا ترى يعني إيه ecosystem? To understand the ecosystem, let's watch that video together. And this video from بنك المعرفة. So let's start it and focus with it.
This beautiful place is Yellowstone National Park. The park contains many different kinds of living things, such as deer, bison, bears, and lots of plants. It also has many non-living things, such as air, water, rocks, soil, rain, snow, and wind. Together, the living and non-living things make up an ecosystem. Some ecosystems are on land, while others are in bodies of water or in wetlands.
That's it. That's the ecosystem. So from here, we can see that from this picture also, the ecosystem. طب يا ترى يعني إيه ecosystem? It's a natural area. Natural area, منطقة natural. And that natural area, it contains different things, such as soil, air, water. في كمان living organisms, animals, plants. زي ما شفنا in the video and also in those pictures. طيب من هنا نقدر نقول that the ecosystem, what are the components of the ecosystem? يا ترى ecosystem مكون من إيه؟ The ecosystem, it contains of 2 main components, which are living organisms, زي إيه living organisms? Such as plants, fungi, algae, and animals. And also non-living things, living organisms and non-living things. طب non-living things such as what? Such as soil, air, water, rocks. All of that are the non-living organisms or non-living things. Sorry. يبقى دلوقتي عندنا هنا living organisms and non-living things. يبقى دلوقتي what is the ecosystem? What is the definition of the ecosystem? The ecosystem is it's a natural area that contains living organisms such as plants and animals and non-living things such as water, soil, and air. يبقى دلوقتي يعني ايه ecosystem؟ فهمنا يعني ايه ecosystem؟ natural area فيها living organisms and non-living things. Okay, now the components of ecosystem also we know it well, living organisms and non-living things زي ما واضح هنا in the picture. Okay, now what about the classification of the ecosystem? What about the classification? طب عشان نفهم أكتر ال classification of ecosystem هم قسموا ال ecosystem لكذا حاجة. طب تعالوا سوا نشوف ال classification ونرجع تاني. Let's go. Okay, so let's now talk about the classification of the ecosystem. Classification of ecosystem. So let's start. the classification of ecosystem. They classify the ecosystem into 3 types according to their size. Into small ecosystem, large ecosystem, and very large ecosystem. طيب small زي ايه؟ Small ecosystem such as an area of land, or also a water pond. Small area. احنا عارفين ان الايكوسيستم عبارة عن ايه؟ Natural area. طب small ecosystem, small natural area زي area of land or a water pond. طيب what about the large؟ لو حاجة أكبر شوية من small، أكبر شوية ممكن نقول زي مثلا إيه؟ زي forest or desert or also the ocean. So they are the examples of the large ecosystem. What about the very large؟ طب يا ترى لما الفورست أو الأوشن يكون large، أمال the very large ecosystem هيكون زي إيه؟ Very large ecosystem such as the universe. That's the very large ecosystem. يبقى احنا دلوقتي عندنا ايه؟ The classification of ecosystem. They classify the ecosystem into 3 types according to their size, into small ecosystem such as area of land or water pond, and large ecosystem such as the forest, desert or the ocean. And also very large, زي ايه very large؟ زي the universe. And the universe, it's the ecosystem, it's considered as the unified ecosystem. يعني هو أكبر ecosystem وهو اللي فيه كل ecosystems, the other ecosystems. Okay, so now we know what are the classification of ecosystems. Small, large, and very large. So let's get back to complete our lesson. Now, دلوقتي we talked about the classification of ecosystem وعرفناهم, and that's okay. What about the relationships between the components of the ecosystem? There are many relationships between the components of the ecosystem. زي ايه مثلا؟ مش في relationship between the plant and the soil? Yes. As the plant absorb water from the soil to can make its photosynthesis process or to make its own food. Okay, يبقى the plant, there is a relationship between the plant and the soil, and the plant depends on the soil to absorb water that's necessary to make its food. طيب بس relation دي لا، في another relationship between plants and animals. زي ما خدنا in the previous lesson that there are some animals that feed on plants to get food and energy. And also there's another relation between the different animals, that there are some animals that feed on other animals to get its food and energy. And that's what we talked about in the last lesson or in the previous lesson. طيب دلوقتي بقى نتكلم عن ايه؟ لما كل relationships دي تكون all of them are in a stable state, ساعتها نقدر نقول that the environment or the ecosystem is said to be a balanced ecosystem. لما كل relationships تكون stable كلها بطريقة ثابتة، مفيش أي disturbance حصل فيها، مفيش أي حاجة حصلت, so then we can say that there is a balanced ecosystem. طيب يعني ايه environmental balance أو يعني ايه balanced ecosystem؟ Environmental balance, it's the balance among the components of ecosystem. لما كل components of the ecosystem يكون ما بينهم balance، يكونوا في حالة stable، ساعتها بنقول there is a environmental balance. طيب also the interaction among the components of the environment or of the ecosystem is a continuous process. دايما بيبقى في interaction ما بين ال components and each other. دايما ال plant بتاخد water من ال soil، دايما ال animals feed on plants أو other animals feed on animals، فبالتالي it's a continuous process بطريقة مستمرة ما بتقفش. So the interaction is a continuous process. And also this interaction, the interaction keeps the balance بيحافظ على البالانس في الأكوسيستم أو في environmental balance. Then the interaction keeps the balance among the components of the ecosystem unless a disturbance happen. إلا لو في disturbance حصل. طيب يا ترى إيه اللي ممكن يؤدي للdisturbance؟ We have two factors we want to know. The factors that disturb the environmental balance. We have two factors. إما natural changes or man interference. Natural changes, it means that changes that happen in the nature without any interference from us. تغيرات بتحصل في النيتشر في الجو مثلا، يبقى change in the climate. يبقى natural changes such as the change in the climate. طب ده ممكن يسبب ايه؟ It leads to disappearance of some organisms or appearance of other organisms, and that leads to an imbalance of the environmental, imbalance of the ecosystem. And then the environment will take a short time or a long period of time to get back its balance. هتقعد فترة قصيرة أو طويلة عشان تقدر ترجع تاني البالانس بتاعها. يبقى دلوقتي تاني يعني إيه natural change؟ هي change that's due to the natural conditions زي إيه؟ زي ال change in the climate. بسبب إيه؟ it may lead to disappearance of some organisms. Disappearance of some organisms زي إيه؟ زي الديناصورز. مش إحنا عندنا قبل كده إحنا عارفين إن في dinosaurs. طب ليه ما فيش دلوقتي dinosaurs؟ Because all of the dinosaurs have disappeared. كلهم اختفوا. They are extinction. دي كده عبارة عن extinction يعني ما بقوش موجودين anymore. يبقى دلوقتي the example that we have in here that happens due to the natural change. The change in the natural conditions of the environment leads to the disappearance of dinosaurs that causing their extinction. طب what about the man interference? Man interference يعني أي activity we do it that disturb the balance of the ecosystem. زي إيه؟ Such as cutting down trees, burning forests, polluting environment, or also eroding the soil. كلها examples بتسبب ل environmental imbalance that disturb the environmental balance. Okay, and that's the pictures as we can see in here, the dinosaurs and the activities that the man do. تمام، يبقى احنا كده اتكلمنا عن the factors that disturb the environmental balance. What about the factors that keep the environmental balance? ايه بقى الفاكتورز اللي بتحافظ على البالانس؟ We have two factors, predation and substitution. هنتكلم الأول عن predation وإزاي predation بيحافظ على environmental balance، بعد كده هنتكلم عن the substitution. The predation. احنا عارفين predation يعني ايه؟ There is a predator and prey وهكذا. طيب predation it organizes the number of prey population to keep the ecosystem balance. إزاي بيعمل organize لعدد الpreys؟ As the predators get rid of weak or sick members and let the strong ones reproduce, adding strong members to the population. يعني دلوقتي لو عندنا lion وعندنا two deers, okay, واحدة فيهم weak and the other one is strong. أول ما اللاين هيظهر أكيد الاثنين هيجروا، بس السترونج هي اللي هتقدر to run and to escape from the lion, but the other one مش هتقدر ان هي تجري بشكل كافي. then the lion will catch it and eat it so it will die. فمعنى كده ان predation بيعمل ايه؟ the predators get rid of any weak or sick prey and then اللي بيزيد the strong one only. So the predators get rid of weak or sick members and let the strong one only to reproduce, adding strong members. What if there were no predators in the ecosystem? يا ترى اللي يحصل لو ما فيش predators في الecosystem؟ ما فيش predators يبقى أكيد the number of preys هيزيد. ما فيش أي enemy ليها يبقى أكيد عددها هيزيد. طب هي دي حاجة حلوة ولا حاجة وحشة إن عدد الpreys يزيد؟ No, it's not good at all. It leads to لو ما فيش predator in the ecosystem هيسبب disturbance للecosystem. ليه؟ Because it will lead to increase in the number of preys. So the food resources become not enough for preys. In food resources الأكل مش هيكون enough to the preys. So they will die. There will be a competition between the preys. هيبقى في competition ما بينهم to get the food then they will die. يبقى هنا competition appears among prey pollution, so prey will die. هيموتوا. And then ليه هيموتوا؟ because they haven't shelter and become weak. طيب احنا كده اتكلمنا عن predation وعرفنا ايه اللي هيحصل لو ما فيش predators. طيب what about the saprophytism؟ يعني ايه saprophytism؟ او يعني ازاي the saprophytism keeps the environmental balance. احنا عارفين ان السابروفيتيزم they are the decomposers and the decomposers decompose the food remains or the dead bodies. معنى كده ان هنا السابروفيتيزم بتعمل decompose لأي dead body. So it helps the environment in getting rid of any dead body by decomposing them. And also recycling the chemical elements found in the bodies of dead organisms as carbon, nitrogen and phosphorus to the environment to make other living organisms benefit from them. لما هي بتعمل decompose للdead body بيبقى في الdead body ده some elements ممكن الانفايرمنت البيئة ترجع تستفاد بيها تاني، فهي بتاخد الاليمنتس دي وترجعها تاني للانفايرمنت، فبالتالي في other animals or other organisms can benefit from it. فبيحصل ايه؟ recycling للelements. طيب what if there were no saprophytism in the ecosystem؟ ايه اللي يحصل لو مفيش saprophytism في الايكوسيستم؟ يعني مفيش decomposers هيعملوا decompose للdead bodies، يبقى اكيد الdead bodies هتفضل موجودة. Then the Earth's surface will be covered with the dead bodies, and also many chemical elements would remain in their bodies not used by other living organisms. وكمان مش هنقدر نستفاد أي organism مش هيقدر يستفيد بالelements اللي موجودة في الdead organism. Okay, معنى كده إن السابروفيتيزم and the predation it keeps the environmental balance. Do you know that also that man can benefit from the saprophytism in other things? We can benefit from saprophytic organisms in many industries. طب ازاي؟ Many industries such as food industry, drugs industry and leather tanning industry. Food industry زي ايه؟ You know that there are some type of saprophytic organisms that may use or we can use it in making some types of food such as cheese, bread, yogurt, vinegar and alcohol. ده كده بالنسبة للfood industry. كمان الدrugs industry بنقدر ان احنا ناخد some types of saprophytic organisms بتساعدنا in making medicines such as antibiotics. ده in the drugs industry. The third industry also that benefit from the saprophytic organism, the laser tanning industry. Laser tanning industry that there are some type of saprophytic organisms that are used in tanning of natural leather. Natural leather that we use in making a lot of things that we use in our daily life, such as the picture that we see in here. But دلوقتي فعلا the saprophytic organisms or the saprophytism it's keep the environmental balance and also we benefit from it. بنستفاد بيها من الfood industry, also in the drugs industry and the laser tanning industry. يبقى احنا كده دلوقتي اتكلمنا عن ايه؟ اتكلمنا عن the ecosystem. عرفنا يعني ايه ecosystem؟ عرفنا also the definition, the components of ecosystem, the classification of ecosystem and the relationship between its components. عرفنا كمان that there are factors that may cause imbalance or disturbance in the ecosystem or in the environmental balance واللي هي the natural changes or the man interference. وعرفنا كمان that there are also factors that keep the environmental balance. factors بتحافظ على environmental balance زي السابروفيتيزم أو البريديشن، وعرفنا كل واحدة ازاي بتحافظ على الإيكوسيستم أو environmental balance وإيه اللي يحصل لو there is no predation or saprophytism. طب now let's take some questions about the lesson today. So let's start our questions. Let's go together. Let's start our question with complete the following statements. Number one, in the complete, what is a natural area that include living organisms and non-living things? For sure, it's the ecosystem. Type another question. the components of the ecosystem are living organisms and non-living things. Another question. Some food relationships, such as where and what, play an important role to keep the balance of the ecosystem. بيحافظ على ecosystem, so they are the predation and the self-rotism. Okay. Now, put right or wrong. Some animals feed on other animals to get food and energy. Right. Okay, number 2. When the relationships among the components of the ecosystem are stable, the environmental balance is formed? Yes, it's true. Okay, an ecosystem is a natural area which contains living organisms only? No, it contains living organisms and non-living things. Okay, now the subrophytism keeps the ecosystem. Yes, we know that subrophytism and predation, both of them, keeps the ecosystem. Now, correct the underlined word. Predation doesn't affect the number of prey populations. For sure, it organizes, بيعمل organize the number of the preys. طيب, now match between the two columns. Natural changes, man interference, small ecosystem and predation. عايزين نشوف كل حاجة in column A هنا هيبقى A هنا in the other side. So the natural changes, which one from here? The natural changes, the disappearance of some organisms. It causes or leads to disappearance of some organisms. طب okay, what about the man interference? Man interference such as the eroding the soil. Okay, now what about the small ecosystem? Small ecosystem such as what? كنا كاتبينها such as the water bond. Okay, and the predation organizes the number of prey populations. Now, choose the correct answer. All the following are examples of man interference except كلهم man interference ما عدا حاجة أكيد هي natural change. زي إيه؟ زي the dinosaur. The extinction of the dinosaurs, it causes or it happens due to the natural changes. طيب, now write the scientific term. Organisms which clean the Earth's surface from dead bodies. Which organisms? The saprophytic organisms. So, the saprophytic or the decomposers. Now, look at the figure, then complete this figure. Organizes the number of prey populations to keep the ecosystem balanced. Okay, for sure, the predation. Okay, now what happened if? What happened if the rabbits are introduced in an island that has a suitable environment with much food and no natural enemies? No natural enemies يعني مفيش أي predator. إيه اللي هيحصل؟ أكيد عدد الرابتس هيزيد قوي. And also that's not good at all. So the environmental balance will be disturbed. ليه يحصل disturbed? As the number of the rabbits increases. هيزيد قوي بشكل أكتر من المفروض. So the number of rabbits increases to an extent that the available food resources becomes insufficient for them. الأكل will be not enough for them. And then the competition will appear among the rabbits and then they will die. Now, give reason for the decomposers are considered the girds of nature. ليه يعتبروا الgirds of the nature? As they clean the surface of the earth. بيعملوا إيه؟ بيعملوا clean the surface of the earth as they decompose any dead body. So they clean the surface of the earth from the remains of the dead bodies, wastes, and also food remains. Now, choose the correct answer. Which, okay, in here keeps the environmental balance, cutting forests, predation, and natural change. For sure, the predation which keep the environmental balance. Okay, and now, from the natural changes which lead to the disappearance of some organisms, natural changes, change of climate, soil removal, cutting down trees, or filling up of water. For sure, the change of climate. And that's our questions for today. وبكده نكون خلصنا the questions of lesson 2 in unit 3 which is the environmental balance. عرفنا عن ايه environmental balance and we talked about it in details. وبكده نكون خلصنا the last lesson in our curriculum, in the science curriculum. I hope that all of you have understood all what I have said today and in the previous lessons. Thank you for watching and goodbye.